Warning, listening to this show may result in increased levels of inspiration, motivation, and innovation. Side effects can include the immediate urge to take massive action to build a better business and life for yourself and others. You've been warned. Welcome to Influencers Radio with your host, Jack Mize.
And welcome back to another episode of Influencers Radio. Today, my guest is Brad Bonilla. He is a third-generation personal injury attorney, and along with his father, John, lead one of the most prominent and successful personal injury law firms in Austin, Texas. In fact, if you are a football fan or watch just about any sporting event on TV in Austin, you know exactly who Brad is from their popular TV commercials. But today, the reason I've asked Brad here and why I consider him an influencer is he has really taken on something that we probably see a lot of every day on the news, and you actually are put yourself in these situations on a daily basis when you're on the road and you don't realize really the dangers that are riding right beside you. And how they affect not just your own life, but the lives of the people around you, the lives of your family, and not just for today, but for years to come. And that is the more you see these commercial vehicles, you see 18-wheelers on the road. And when you see an accident happen with one of these, it very rarely looks like people come out unscathed. And Brad is one of the leaders, and like I said, one of the most prominent attorneys in the Austin, Texas area, helping people navigate the roads of dealing with these accidents with commercial vehicles, 18-wheelers. So with that, I'd like to welcome Brad Bonilla. Welcome, Brad, to Influencers Radio.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
I want to jump right in here because a lot of people think about personal injury attorneys. You see a lot of the commercials on TV, everything from, I got hurt at work, I slipped and fell, I was in a car accident, a fender bender. You handle all that, but you are really focused and have taken a strong interest in helping folks that have been affected with some of these bigger vehicles or these commercial vehicles. Has there been something happen, a trend over the last few years or over time that has really kind of put a spotlight on this?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with just the economic engines of the country starting to come back to life. And the more economic development you get, especially in an area like Austin that's booming and jobs are growing, there are an increased amount of commercial vehicle traffic and 18-wheeler traffic on the roads. So it's being increasingly frequent that you see these types of wrecks pop up just with the development of the economy.
Well, you certainly see a lot of demand for commercial drivers, the trucking industry. You see training programs to bring people into the industry. You see incentives for signing on to trucking companies. When a career or a job has this kind of demand for bringing people in, do you think that there might be some kind of issues, safety or otherwise, maybe as they're trying to fill these jobs that maybe the people that are working and driving right now may be overburdened or overworked? Do you see this as potentially contributing to an increase in these accidents that we're seeing?
Well, a lot of these accidents are caused by driver distraction, driver fatigue, lack of proper driver training, and even lack of maintenance. Companies that are putting these vehicles out on the road don't have time to take them out of service because they have so much work to deal with. So they're sending out, big trucks and 18-wheelers that have brakes that should have been serviced 100,000 miles ago.
Well, when there is an accident, and like I talked about at the top of the show, when there is an accident with an 18-wheeler or a larger commercial vehicle, it could rarely be described as a fender bender.
Well, these types of accidents rarely come out as a minor accident, as you pointed out. The real big cause of a catastrophic accident is the weight differential. You're looking at a fully loaded 18-wheeler that weighs close to 80,000 pounds, whereas an average passenger vehicle or SUV might be 4,000 or 5,000 pounds. So when you're talking about 20 to 1 as far as the difference in weight, it doesn't take a huge speed on the part of that large truck to cause catastrophic damage, total vehicles, flip vehicles, or, bang people up with broken bones, and take them to the hospital and have emergency surgery.
Well, yeah. And vehicles can be replaced, but let's talk about the human element. Best case scenario, you walk away and can make your own decision about what you need to do. And this is where people really are, perhaps confused or overwhelmed, because this isn't something that people plan for. But oftentimes people know someone who has been injured or even worse in these and have to make a decision about what happens next. Do I call an attorney? Do I call their insurance, or perhaps their insurance calls them before they even have a chance? Take us through the steps of what people should be thinking about.
Well, I think that in general, if you're in a major wreck, you're taken to the hospital, you have to spend a couple of days at the hospital recovering, or you're sent home post-surgery and you're at home trying to recover, you need to figure out the best thing to do to protect your rights. I know a very skilled adjuster here in the Austin, Texas area, and I've dealt with him on 18-wheeler cases before, and he tells me stories about getting notified by an 18-wheeler carrier and actually going out the same day to meet people at the hospital, to take pictures of at the hospital, start trying to promise that everything's going to be okay. And I can assure you that if you're, getting contacted by this adjuster or by these 18-wheeler companies, they have one interest in mind, and that interest is to try to minimize your rights. So you really need to step back and think, are they really after my best interest?
Well, I've got to admit, when thinking about a personal injury attorney, or the stereotype, I guess you would say, is the personal injury attorney, when an accident like this occurs, my first thought is it's the attorney, the personal injury attorney, that is waiting at the hospital trying to get in on the case. But what I'm finding, the reality is it's actually the insurance company that is there at the hospital, trying to gather as much information from the patient and work and get this case closed, oftentimes before attorney is even involved.
Yes, sir. That's very accurate. It happens here in Austin, Texas. It also happens in every other major city in the U.S. We represent a client who was in a wreck up in the Fort Worth area. It was rear-ended by an 18-wheeler. And the day after the wreck, there was a person that walked in there, started asking him questions, started taking pictures of wounds he had on his head from where the doctors had to put staples, and ended up that was a representative of the insurance company of the 18-wheeler. They're very aggressive to get to the hospital, start to try to become your friend, and promise you everything's going to be okay.
Let's go ahead and put it on the table. People are skeptical of lawyers sometimes. They're skeptical of the legal process, and if the insurance company is right there and appear to be very helpful and concerned about the well-being of that victim. And I guess sometimes it's easy to say to yourself, maybe I don't need to get an attorney involved. These folks seem to kind of have my best interest, and it looks like they're going to go ahead and take care of it. What are the dangers of falling into that thought process?
Well, I think from the insurance perspective, is their job is to try to get closure on a major case as quickly as possible. So in so doing, they're only looking at really the present. They're not going to look at the possibilities that might happen 5, 10, 15 years down the road, type of medical care you may need in the future, or what type of impact this will have on your ability to earn money for your family down the road. Their interest is minimizing risk. The insurance company, their adjusters, their staff, they're trained risk managers. And managing risk means trying to get you to take something that's lower than what you're legally entitled to recover.
So even though, they may generally be concerned and nice on a personal level, it's their job to pay out the least amount that they possibly have to.
I mean, if I was looking at it just from a numbers perspective and I was an insurance company and my average claim payout was, say, $10,000, I would go to everyone I could right after a wreck and offer them five and say, take $5,000. And for everyone that took that $5,000, I'd be saving money because that's half of what my average claim payout is. The more they can do that, the more they can manage their risk and the more their profits are going to be.
A lot of people think that the insurance company would come in as an adversarial role, like them against you, but I guess they're typically going to be nice because they would much rather just settle this with the patient directly than have an attorney involved. When someone sees this, what should they think about that attorney's role? Obviously, your financial benefit out of this is tied directly to what you can get for them, but also you're an advocate for, like you mentioned, what happens in the future. When you talk about the future, what are some of the things that people should consider, or maybe they miss out on considering when they're dealing with an insurance directly?
Well, a lot of people these days, pretty much everybody has health insurance now. So if you're involved in a major wreck and the insurance company is there to talk dollars and cents with you, rarely are you going to worry about what your medical conditions will look like 5, 10 years down the road. You've got health insurance. You're going to be limited on how much out-of-pocket costs you're going to experience. The reality is the fault-based legal system is there to hold the wrongdoer accountable. If you don't have an expert like we use experts to itemize the future cost of medical care for a person involved in a major accident. If you don't bring in that expert and you don't have that lawyer to push that future medical claim, they're getting off the hook. They're getting a free pass on all the medical costs that you're going to experience every day for the rest of your life. Same thing goes with any future loss of earnings that you may experience as a result of going through a treatment and taking time off of work. When the work you have to miss to treat those medical problems down the road.
Right. And some people may think that, I don't really feel that bad. And, what they're going to give me is going to get me a new car, even better car than I had before. That could be fairly dangerous thinking, but it seems to be not unusual that that's kind of the mindset because people think, I'm a little sore, but I'll be okay. What do you see the consequences of that being? How often do things creep up later on when they think that, I may feel fine or almost fine right now?
Well, I think a lot of those can be very dangerous. Even when you're talking about someone experiencing whiplash, on average, about 20% of whiplash cases turn into what is termed a chronic problem, which means something that continues to recur into the future. So if you look at it and feel you're going to be okay, you got that car, you can go back to work, you may be fine for the next 6 months, you may be fine for the next year, you may be fine for the next 5 years. But when you're 50 years old and you're having to go into forced retirement because you can no longer physically able to work because of back problems, and you're sitting back and looking there and saying, gosh, why did this happen? The only way you can possibly try to understand that is to get the medical care you need now, to take the time to do it now when you still have legal right to pursue action against the people that caused this condition.
Now, there's some people that say that, I've got pretty good insurance. So my work provides me with a great plan. I'm going to just let that take care of my medical, and I'm going to skip talking with the attorney and just deal directly with the insurance to recover my car damages, get a new car. But I didn't realize until I spoke with you about this, and it sounds like a lot of people don't realize that it's not as a clean a process of that if that's the case.
Yeah, almost every health insurance company out there, even the government plans through Medicare and Medicaid, contain provisions that are contractual right of recoveries. We call this process subrogation. So if you end up settling a claim with an insurance company, recouping some money, your health plan may contact you months down the road and say, guess what? We had a notice that you were involved in a claim and that you might have recovered money. Well, we paid out $10,000, $20,000 in medical bills on your behalf, and now you have to reimburse us for those costs. and they will come after you to get reimbursed for those costs of those medical expenses, even if you've already settled the claim.
And I think that's an important point. I don't want to, glide over this. It really is, I think, something that a lot of people had no idea that could occur. They think that, well, my medical insurance is to pay my doctor bills. And I was in this accident, and the insurer of this 18-wheeler, this commercial vehicle, they're going to give me money, and I'm going to be able to pocket that money and let my insurance pay my medical. But you're saying that your insurance, not their insurance, but your insurance that paid your medical bills, can come back to you later and said, hey, we heard that you got a settlement out of this. It's in your policy that you have to pay us back for the money that we paid for your medical expenses. Am I hearing that right?
You are hearing that absolutely correct. As a matter of fact, Medicare has an entire division set up to do that. It's called the MSPRC, Medicare Secondary Payment Recovery Contractor. Their whole purpose is to figure out which claims people have that they paid for collisions or injuries or personal injury claims, and then to try to recoup money from that. And if you don't pay from the settlement, they will levy it against you personally. They will offset Social Security benefits. They will come after you personally to hold you accountable for the funds that you should have paid them back.
And with an attorney, the way that you structure this and the way you deal with this, are you avoiding this or incorporating this into the settlement, or is that all accounted for when someone deals with an attorney?
Right. So when someone deals with a reputable personal injury attorney, that personal injury attorney is not only going to negotiate a settlement for pain and suffering, but that attorney is also going to incorporate the cost of the medical and contact health insurance companies and verify subrogation interests and make sure that all the loose ends are tied up so it doesn't come back to bite you down the road.
It sounds like by working with an attorney, you avoid surprises. You avoid sounds like very costly surprises that pop up that people never were aware of. So if we go back to someone's been in an accident or their family member's been in an accident in regardless of the extent of the injuries, too soon, too late. Is there such a thing in contacting a personal injury attorney? Is there such a thing as, too soon to call them? Well, let's wait and talk to this person first or talk to the police first. Or is there such a thing as too late to contact them? There's not much they can do at this point.
I don't think there's ever a time you can be too soon in contacting a personal injury attorney. I had a client a couple of years ago who was involved in a motorcycle accident with an 18-wheeler. And I tell you, the second that happened, we got contacted by his family, and we started an immediate investigation. We can still send our accident reconstructionist expert out to the scene of the collision. We can take pictures. We can make sure that evidence is preserved, that the truck is taken out of service, so we can have it inspected as far as the brakes go. If there's any black box we can download. That evidence is evidence that is vital to prove up liability in most commercial vehicle or 18-wheeler cases. And if we get contacted immediately after an accident, it puts us in the absolute best position to make sure we preserve that evidence.
And that's something that most people would never do on their own. It's something that's probably they aren't even in the frame of mind to be able to do that. Now, what about too late? Is there a situation if someone's, listening right here in Austin, Texas, and they're saying, this happened 2 years ago, this happened, 6 months ago, but, we've kind of been talking with insurance companies or this has happened or this has happened. Is there such a thing as too late?
Well, in almost every state out there, including Texas, there's always going to be some statute of limitations. Statute of limitations means that there is a law out there that tells you how long you have to pursue a case. In Texas, for most injury claims, there's a 2-year statute of limitations. After 2 years is up from the date of the injury, there probably won't be a lawyer out there that can help you on the case. So you absolutely need to make a decision within the first 2 years. even if you make a decision a year down the road and say, I need someone to help me for this collision, the attorney can still likely pursue action on your behalf. There's just not going to be much physical evidence at the scene left. So if there's a material dispute over who hit who, or how fast a vehicle was going and looking for skid marks, that type of evidence will be long gone. But it can be a tougher battle to fight, although it is still possible.
Brad, you are clearly a specialist when it comes to these types of accidents. Are there certain nuances of these type of commercial claims, these types of 18-wheeler claims, that someone really needs to consider whether or not their attorney knows the nuances of that's going to give them the highest expectation of success through this versus someone that is kind of just across the board, anything personal injury?
Well, I think a lot of the nuances come down to knowing the different regulations that govern each individual type of vehicle involved in the collision. For instance, if you're involved in a wreck, there's a lot of box trucks out there on the road. You might see them as like delivery vehicles for office supply stores. And a lot of those box trucks are designed to weigh at or under 26,000 pounds. Well, anything above 26,001 pounds becomes governed by the FMCSA, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration rules and regulations. So there's a huge difference between the type of records and the type of safety protocols that FMCSA regulated vehicle has to go through versus a vehicle that weighs less than 26,000 pounds and is not governed under anything but the general state laws. And, to a lot of attorneys out there, a box truck and an 18-wheeler hitting you means the same thing. But as far as from a safety standpoint and, from a legal standpoint, there can be extreme differences between the two types of cases.
And that's not something that that commercial vehicles company or their insurance is just going to say, oh, by the way, here, you should know this.
No, absolutely not. They're not going to lay out the playbook for you and tell you. Believe me, their interest is in managing their risk and trying to, avoid paying you money if at all possible.
Just last week, you were part of a big news story locally about a accident with a local bus company that really shows the expertise of digging in and going beyond and looking for information and being able to go ahead and fight and be an advocate for the families and the victims of these accidents. Can you go into that just a little bit?
So we represent the family of a lady who was involved in an accident in late 2014, and unfortunately her injuries were catastrophic, and she went through multiple surgeries, ultimately became a quadriplegic, and unfortunately succumbed to her injuries in early 2015 as a direct result of this collision. The family obviously wants to know why this happened, wants to know who's responsible. And when you have these bus companies and they contract out drivers to various organizations, we wanted to dig in there and we wanted to figure out what really happened and who's to blame. And these bus companies, they have surveillance videos on the buses, but they refuse to turn over the surveillance videos to show the actions of the driver on the date in question. As a matter of fact, we submitted an open records request under the Texas Open Records Act, and they're appealing it all the way up to the state attorney general. In those instances where information is being intentionally withheld, the only recourse you have is to hire a lawyer and pursue litigation to go through the legal process and force them to turn over the information so we can try to do a thorough investigation and figure out why something like this happens. Is it driver error? Is it lack of safety training? Is it, any number of reasons that relate to driver fatigue? And those are all things that I think we want to figure out, because especially here in the Austin area, this same bus company had approximately 500 collisions on record last year. And even though some collisions can be minor, that's a substantial increase from prior years. Something's going on here, and we want to figure out the root cause so hopefully everyone can be safer out there on the roads.
So have an attorney that knows what to dig into and where to dig into that to get that information can obviously be a huge differential in the outcome of a case like this. Because that's certainly something that the bus company or their insurance company would never say, oh, by the way, here. In fact, they actively fought against providing you that information. And I guess, your ability to get that information really probably made a big difference in the outcome of that.
Yes, sir. And, let me tell you, these companies like this, these commercial vehicle carriers, when you start digging through the details, the same day that this incident happened, they had a team of defense attorneys and accident reconstructionists at the scene trying to gather evidence to point fingers at the lady that passed away. While she's in the hospital, teetering on the brink of life and death, they're out there trying to gather every scrap of evidence to point the finger back at her. Talk about the victim's family being put at a distinct disadvantage by a commercial vehicle carrier whose job it is to drive safely on our roads, a professional driver.
Brad, let me ask you, if someone is in the Austin, Texas area and something like this occurs, and it seems like it's more and more, every time I go out on the street, you see the commercial vehicles, you see the ads for more commercial drivers, like I was saying, what's the best way for them to contact you to see, where they stand?
Anyone wants to get in touch with me, you can call us at 512-441-1111 or visit our website at John, spelled Jon, Bonilla, B as in boy, Onilla.com.
Your willingness to come on and share this information and really be an advocate for the success of people that find themselves in these truly unfortunate circumstances, really is a privilege to have you on, and I want to thank you for being here to Influencers Radio today.
Yes, sir. We appreciate the opportunity.
All right. Well, there you have it. Check it out at JohnBonilla.com. That's JohnBonilla.com, the Bonilla Law Firm. And until next time on Influencers Radio, remember, you are the only real game changer.
You've been listening to Influencers Radio. To get all past shows and updates on future shows, visit influencersradio.com today or follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/influencersradio.